Hello, everyone. This is the BU Gaming Club. I am Lyle, and I'm going to be casting this best of three CSL match with Christopher Whammer. Chris, how you doing tonight?
Uh, Good. How are you?
I'm looking forward to some good League of Legends between the BU Division One team and Brandeis University.
Interesting.
So as the game loads,
I'm expecting a little more of a I don't know. I feel like there's fiesta in the air.
what makes you say that?
So it's just it's the time of year maybe, late October. Everybody's feeling a little chirpy.
Yeah, the current environment is doing that.
Exactly.
A lot of reasons to stay indoors, not got much people. Oh, maybe at a great point there, Chris. You know, a lot of pent-up feelings that these players are gonna express through their
Exactly.
play on the Rift.
Welcome to Summoner's
And
Rift.
what beautiful display it will be. I think we might still be streaming the client, so we'll get
30
that
seconds until minions
switched
spawn.
over to the game. Oh no, we are looking at the game, but the casters cannot see it, so it will be a little difficult to commentate.
Well, we can see the standard start here, which is
Ah,
the
great.
invade on opposite sides of the map. Very standard stuff.
So if both teams are invading, that generally means one of the teams is misevaluating because only one team can really have a stronger level 1. And if I had to guess, probably blue side, so BU in this case, did have the stronger level 1, and while Nautilus is really strong, I think Leona flash stunning with the AoE
Yeah.
of Ashe and Graves on top of it is much more lethal compared to some relatively weak level champions like Vladimir and Rek'Sai. So thankfully, for red side, just deep wards were traded and recalls were had. Recalling and having opposite side starts of the map with both teams knowing exactly where the enemy jungler is. So you do hope that when these junglers finish their first clears and go for ganks, that the appropriate sides of the map will not be caught sleeping, as you know where they started. Some light trading down in bot lane with double tank supports. It can be a little scary if they're able to find a good engage, but I would expect with Ezreal being so safe for him to not actually have much kill pressure on him, and the Ashe Leona lane will end up probably just pushing repeatedly into tower until the Rek'Sai comes on this side of the map. I
To
do
agree.
hope Ashe levels Hawkshot level 2, because we know the Rek'Sai did start at her red buff, which means she should be pathing down. The vision would be very helpful. Though instead of doing that, okay, there is a gank mid instead of that. Oh, Silas is landing the chains, but maybe going too far, taking a tower shot, not really good for him.
Now, we know coming in that both of these are storied programs, and this is going to be a match for the ages. Here we
Oh,
see
sure.
Rek'Sai coming in,
Yeah, going
looking
for a
for the...
repeat gank.
Hell yeah.
Look,
Thank you.
thank you for
Thank you.
subbing.
Hell yeah.
Appreciate the support. So
Unfortunately, we
Rek'Sai's
do not
feeling
have...
the Raptor camp. Will she go over the wall from Raptors to mid? A very common Rek'Sai path. Not doing it. Instead, going towards bot. As we said, the Leona Ashe lane does tend to push, so there is an opportunity for a gank. Finds the Leona with the hook. CCs, but the aftershock makes him so tanky. Really good E to find an escape angle, and that flash is enough. Will Ashe be able to trade back? She does with the red buff. Nautilus could be under threat too. There is still Ignite. Do expect that to go down. Yeah, that is a second kill, and Leona with the E back up. This is going to be a triple kill, and a 3v2. That is incredibly bad for Brandeis.
And I would like to point out, we unfortunately do not have Teemo on the Rift with us tonight. A very powerful League of Legends champion. I believe he may have been globally banned. We all know how overpowered he is. And we see Silas going in for more trades on the Vilcaz, coming away on the better side of that one.
Yeah, this mid matchup is actually notoriously very strong for Vel'Koz, as he can just kind of outrange Silas and just end up pushing the wave without much threat on him. So I would expect with Vel'Koz being to kind of recall and take his teleport back once he has 1300 gold for Lust Trap there. You can see the gold lead is so big not only because of you being able to get the 3 kills bot, but when a jungler ganks and fails, it allows the opposing team jungler to make a play on the other side. And you saw the Graves pressure top and steal the camps that were remaining on Rek'Sai's top side of the map. Rek'Sai ending up going for the play I kind of mentioned before the failed bot dive from Raptors to mid, a very, very powerful gank angle. And by doing that, ended up burning the Vel'Koz flash and the Sass Ignite, trying to kill, but ended up having Vel'Koz live at 1 HP. Very unfortunate. Just going to TP back, not going to lose so much. And because of the failed gank bot and now the gank mid resulting in no kill, Brandeis is really going to be behind in a lot of pressure and gold in this early game. It's going to be pretty hard to
We
come
did
back.
see flashes get traded between the Rek'Sai and the Vel'Koz. Who do you think it's more valuable that, or who do you think it means more that they no longer have a flash?
So I think it's, assuming Vel'Koz plays reasonably, I think it's much more detrimental to red side, because since they're behind, they kind of need their jungler, the person who can go around the maps, like kind of known as like a fixer role, to be able to find an advantage somewhere. And without flash, it's much more difficult for this Rek'Sai to find an impact, whereas Vel'Koz is really notorious for long range wave clear, not being very interactive, and kind of just sit back at his tower and like play very safe until his flash is back up. So I know it's a basically impossible task, but we're going to need to see this Rek'Sai find an effective place to influence the map even without flash now. This top matchup is Vlad versus Ornn. My perspective is that this is a pretty good matchup for Vlad. He's able to not get bullied by Ornn super hard and then find a lot of effectiveness later game, especially against Ashe and Vel'Koz, 2 immobile carries, and when you're going to be able to pool a lot of the CC coming in, like the Ornn ultimate, the Ashe ultimate, Leona ultimate. I think Vlad is going to be a very important win con if Brandeis want to win, but you see him getting bullied and burning the pool. If this next is the kill, just a solo kill from Sloppy Thirds on BU, really, I think that was really good knowledge of the matchup and being aware that as soon as Vladimir pools, he has no answer to the Ornn ultimate, and you saw him cast it immediately and was able to really capitalize on Vladimir, I think, being too greedy with how much CS he wants to get early game. Like, as Vladimir, you do lose the lane matchup if you go for these long extended trades, because Ornn is very powerful with his brittle and his W and his CC. All Vlad wants to do is kind of play as safe as possible and just not die. So I think topside going bad really will kind of cement this game as being almost doom status at 8 minutes in.
Wow, that's a big call. There's still a long way to go, and I would definitely agree. BU holds a commanding lead here at 8 minutes in with about 2-ish, a little more than 2k, 2.5k gold lead, but Sweet Brandeis can make anything happen, as Silas getting another good trade onto the Vel'Koz in the mid lane.
Yes, I was playing well. Just unfortunately, the matchup is so difficult that even with like the best trade possible, like it was relatively even. It's kind of brutal to see in the range of Vel'Koz Q, allowing him to just wave clear without a care in the world, really making it difficult. This Rek'Sai is topside. I do imagine they're gonna want to go top, as I think it is pretty easy to identify. No, they're gonna go mid certainly because Vel'Koz is caught out. The Sass stealing the Vel'Koz ult does get BU's mid laner kill, but Graves coming in and turning. Does he have ult for the Silas? He does, but doesn't use it, as he doesn't think it will kill. Just gonna push the wave, let it reset, deny Silas the XP. But with Nautilus coming mid, it seems like he'll be able to get it anyway. I think I'm kind of surprised. As I said, when the jungler and mid laner traded flashes, I think it's kind of you have to change your mindset as the Vel'Koz do. Okay, I can bully Silas because normally you're able to with such long range, and instead change your perspective to I'm going to play safe and not be a liability to my team. But him going so far forward and allowing himself to get caught out by the Silas, have Silas steal the ult, and basically just go 100 to 0, I think was a little ambitious, especially with Leona around. I think you could have probably baited Silas into a more aggressive position and gotten the kill for free without dying.
Definitely.
Leona getting cut out
Oh boy.
Ash has a really good ultimate. The focus.
Perhaps Ash can turn this around. Oh, the Rek'Sai is a really good knockdown, but that's a really good flash. Vel'Koz is here now. Ash is gonna fall. Vel'Koz will get the return kill on the Ezreal, and Leona just getting away. It looks like Vel'Koz is in trouble now.
Without flash, yeah.
My boy True Lover, no.
Slogan will find his death here as well. I think
That's just a really good play for Brandeis.
Initially, it looked like that B was going to turn the 2v3 once again, and Ash kind of, while she got Nautilus ultimate, didn't get burst down, and it seemed like Brandeis didn't have enough target focus to know who they were targeting and got both members low, but not killed, and I thought that was really going to bite them. But it seemed like the reinforcement of Vel'Koz was enough to bail out BU, but not quite, as I think the confidence made them overextend and let the Silas have enough time to come back. Is Orin gonna go for another solo kill? Pool is down. He could ult.
Yeah, he could drop the ulti here. He chooses not to though.
I think he's just gonna go for the plate here after pushing the wave. But Vlad does have teleport back up.
It is reasonable to look. The dragon is potentially being skirmished over in the bottom side. Both top laners with teleport and ultimates available, so you can see an explosive fight happen.
And so I think you should expect Ornn, now that he got the plate, he should recall right now and prepare to teleport to the dragon fight if required. That's a really strong play for BU, because even if Brandeis decides to match the teleport, Vladimir will be losing these creeps that are getting pushed to tower. Vel'Koz is overextended here. I wonder if he'll get punished. Silas lands the chains. Ash lands. Well, no, I think the Silas have the same mindset as the Ben. Fighting is running a little too deep. The Orange teleport is really effective. Lands on a
push. Oh, Vladimir. Oh my god.
Vlad in the backline, not quite strong enough to actually win out the fight, and it's gonna end up being
gonna be a BU fight right there.
And I think
we saw Vladimir come in with a big flank there, and he almost was able to pull it back for his team, but unfortunately, BU able to keep it together for Brandeis, unfortunately for Brandeis.
Yeah, the thing about this Vladimir carry is he, especially when you're already behind, he scales very well with items. And so before you have things like the Proto Belt, like the Zanyas, like your Rabadons, you don't actually have enough of a threat to one-shot the enemy backline. And with the Silas dead at the start of the fight due to an overextension onto Vel'Koz, the Vlad himself was not enough to actually execute these backline members, and kind of made it a pretty easy fight for BU. I think realistically, with how far behind Brandeis were, I would have liked to see them have the Vlad not teleport down, but instead push top and try and recover the gold deficit that he's placed himself in, and then fight for the next dragon. Leona and Graves running at the Ezreal Nautilus. The Ezreal not shifting out of the Leona stun. This looks bad. 1 HP, there's nothing to finish. Graves ult isn't up. They will kill Nautilus.
Oh my gosh.
They don't. And now the Silas is here. Will he be able to turn? No, he won't, because the Vel'Koz moved as well. So it looks like it's going to be 0 for 0. But I think...
I believe that Slogan went for a very big play there, trying to predict the Ezreal shift with his ultimate, and if he had held it a little longer, I think he might have been able to knock it down, but it was a very...
I'm also slightly disappointed as the Ezreal not shifting away from the initial Leona Zenith Blade, her E ability, the thing that lets her dash to you. I think if he had shifted immediately, there would have basically been no threat at all. So a little bit of a mistake there, I think, but I mean, no harm, no foul. Nobody died. He's just gonna reset, go back to bot lane. And the 2,500 goldie that you mentioned earlier at about 8 minutes, now up to 4,500. 5,500? 4,500.
Yeah.
Yeah. Silas. Yes, and you see, so he's gonna die. What a so this is the brutal matchup that if Silas actually wants to do anything, he has to hit so hard. Oh, and the Mace Cleanse by Ezreal, that is very painful to watch. I think I'm really, well, okay. I know what their mindset was. Brandeis, bot lane, saw they were basically in tops, and Rek'Sai said they were coming down, so Nautilus engaged, but because of how weak the bot lane actually is, he definitely went in a few seconds too early, basically having the Nautilus 1v2, the Ashe and Leona for 3 seconds himself, got killed, but then the Rek'Sai finally arrived, and they were able to clean up the 2 kills, making it a good 2-for-1 play.
It was.
The problem is, I feel like this gold. Okay. If Brandeis is going to win this game, so they're very far behind, so we have to kind of get in the mindset of what would be optimal for them, and I think this Ezreal being strong isn't actually going to be able to provide the DPS needed to be effective in this fight. So I think the damage is really going to have to come through this Vladimir threat. And so I think trading kills on the spot side of the map isn't actually a good way for Brandeis to come back in this game, and I really wish they were able to focus more on somehow getting this Vlad involved in the game, as I think him being isolated is going to just end up being make the team fights really difficult for Brandeis, and maybe in a situation where your early game was more stable, you wouldn't even have the team fight and have Vlad just split push. But because you're already down 2 drags to 0, the Dragon Soul threat is going to be too big. So I really would not. I don't envy the position Brandeis is going to have to be in a few minutes here. The next dragon coming up in 35 seconds, as you see Silas ping it, and they kind of know that this is going to be a really important fight, but taking it 5,000 gold down is going to be really brutal. And if we open up the items, so we can see that basically all members in the game are on 1 core item, so it's actually not as bad as it could be, but definitely a lot more power for me overall. Nautilus has a really good hook on Leona, but Leona having a counter engage on Ezreal, basically able to isolate him out. Nautilus ult on Ashe, but no real threat. Rek'Sai just gets killed after her ult, and Nautilus dies as well. That's gonna be
this fight is a disaster for the red team.
And you see Vlad going in, he's going to kill the Ashe, and so you see how effective he can be, but he just doesn't have enough time to scale. You know,
that is also going to be the 3rd dragon going over, so that fight was all around very, very not good at all for the red team.
So Brandeis loses about 1,500 gold in kills. They lose the bot tower, which is about, I believe, like 700 gold. You lose probably 3 minion waves. That's another 500 gold. You lose an extra kill on top. You might lose a 2nd tower now. You lose the 3rd dragon. And the gold beat that was about 5,000 with 2 dragons is now at almost 9,000 with 3 dragons.
Yeah, we're getting to 10,000 here very soon.
Really kind of. And just add insult to injury, the Rift Herald there gets a 3rd charge, damaging the inhibitor tower, making it easier for BU to push in later. Really brutal, and I think...
So, just speaking with our production here, I think you just press O. I think you just press O.
Yeah. And then X is the
Oh yeah. Alright, perfect.
We can look at the gold now. So Ashe up about 3,000. Been kind of popping off bot, as you might expect. Warren up 1,000 gold on his opponent. jungle about even, mid up 2,500 gold.
So-
but- sure.
Getting back to the big picture here, BU has been in the driver's seat for
Yes,
the
they-
entirety of this game. And
Completely
so I feel like that has to be weighing on Brandeis' mind, is that nothing has gone right virtually. And so where do you think they might want to look in order to maybe see Silas getting killed again, in order to not have this happen?
So, I think it's a weird. So here's my main issue with the draft, and that it's. So I think, especially for the players on Brandeis, I know that Doug is a very avid Rek'Sai player. I know.
Fight, oh my god.
This game's essentially over at this point. It would take BU having a massive misplay to be able to lose a fight. So I'll talk about some of the big picture things that you mentioned here. So Ezreal is a champion that is notoriously weak in lane and does not have any setup for his team to come to him. And Ezreal is a pick that you would pick for two reasons. The first is in draft, if you feel like that you have to pick before your lane opponent, and you are scared that they would be able to punish you on something else, you can go Ezreal, and he's considered very safe. The second reason you might pick Ezreal is if you have a draft where you know that you would like to play to either mid or top, so a different side of the map, and your support is likely going to be roaming to assist in the plays on that side of the map, you can pick Ezreal to basically farm safely. And so, but when you look at how Brandeis played the game, the Rek'Sai started top, pathed bot, and ganked bot a lot. And it was the early game weakness of the Ezreal that I think really, really hurt them in this situation. So I think you have to identify that if you want to play bot, you should pick an AD carry that more supports that playstyle. Something like a Jhin, who's extremely powerful on the patch, something I know that Brandeis AD carry plays. You could play something like Samira, you could play something, even like a Xayah or something. She's pretty bad in terms of numbers, but I just want to see an AD carry that better fits that type of playstyle. The other brutal thing that I didn't really like is that the Silas was picked. Silas was picked early and let the Vel'Koz counter pick come in afterwards, and I think that counter pick was kind of brutal, as it basically shut down Silas the whole game and didn't really let him have effectiveness. The Vladimir, I was fifth picked by Red Side, and I actually really liked it here, and you can see some of its merits, but basically just not set up by his team to actually be effective in what the champion wants to do. So I don't think that's really a problem.
And we can't really take away though that BU has executed their team very, very well. They've shown some, as they clean up even more kills here. They've shown some excellent understanding of the matchups. We saw just Leona Ashe against Nautilus Ezreal. We saw some amazing fights being procured by the Leona and the Ashe. We saw solo kills and near solo kills over and over in the top lane. So let's not forget, BU has been playing extremely well.
Yeah, I do agree. It is very important, and I think the two main plays, not a coincidence that they were the first two plays that really solidified this game, were the 3v2 bot, where BU was able to kill all three of Brandeis' bot lane and jungle without dying themselves. And then immediately after, the Ornn was able to solo kill the plan. And after that type of start, I felt like the game was going to be over, as you basically have no strengths from that point that you could even play around. And it felt like ever since then they've been kind of controlled as you would expect. And I think, while not a perfect game, I mean, BU hasn't lost any towers, they haven't lost any dragons. Some of the kills were not, or rather some of the deaths that BU incurred weren't optimally played, but overall they played a very clean game. They should have no regrets, I think, going into the next game of the series.
Yeah, I would say maybe the only thing that was looking shaky at the beginning was the Silas seemed to be having a decent time against the Vel'Koz, but as you mentioned, at this point, there's really nothing he can do
Yeah, I mean,
against the range.
I will say this is potentially one of the complaints many people have about League of Legends, in that quite early on, I think this game was basically decided, barring exceptional play from Brandeis, and basically the last 10 to 15 minutes have basically just been uh, not what were basically as expected, without many surprises, right? So while the last half of this game wasn't the most exciting thing, I think it is good to see that BU was able to close with a lead. They were pretty stable. They did what they needed to do. They went to the objectives, and they played a strong game. And I think it's a good first
Hmm.
confidence boost. And we're going to be able to see, can the second game be played as clean and have a quick 2-0. Um, might have a new support. I think, did a new player sub in? Maybe I'm
I
crazy.
think they did. I believe TW Asian. Is that a new player? I think it is.
TW is in. No,
Oh, he
it's the same
was? Okay.
players. I'm
It's the
I'm
same
just
players.
crazy. So let's analyze some of the bans here. For the people that don't know, Sloppy Thirds, BU's top laner, he likes Kled, and he plays it a lot. So not that surprised to see it. Senna, very very stable bot lane pick. Kind of what we're saying Brandeis would want to pick. Makes sense to have it banned. Lee Sin, on the other hand, EYHL, known as Elliot, very strong Lee Sin player. Not surprised to see it. Ornn as well caused a lot of issues last game, especially if you want to play through top. Those bans make sense. And finally, BU rounding out the bans with a Darius, something I know is Mr. Krabs' second most played in ranked, and a Thresh. Again, I think BU is doing a great job understanding the point of their bans, right? They said, okay, they want to play through top, so they want a stable bot lane. What stable bot lane picks can we remove so they can't play it? And identify the Sen and Thresh and had those banned.
Definitely, definitely. We see the Rek'Sai first pick here, so they were very happy, apparently, with the Rek'Sai last game, or at least they thought that the pick was a very, very strong part of their team. So
Yeah,
they
I
are
know
looking to run
Rek'Sai's.
back down.
I know it's TW's highest win rate and ranked second most played, and commonly considered a very reasonable matchup into the Graves, which it was played against. So I think saying it was an okay matchup, it's a comfort pick. It wasn't the reason we lost. Let's
Uh,
let's run it back.
here's the real question: is this a River Shen?
Is this so? Knowing the players, I would guess probably not Shen jungle. Well,
Okay,
certainly not Shen jungle if you
sure,
play it.
certainly not at this point.
But here is the truth. Slogan, BU support. He likes playing frontline tanks and CC champions. Shen
Mhm.
does fit that role. So will Shen stay top, or will he get flexed to support? One of the powers I think that is really powerful and why they might first pick Shen, because it kind of enables this flexibility based on what gets drafted. But I really like this brand. As I said, I think Leona is much more powerful compared to Nautilus. I want to see them pick it, and they did. I really hope they don't go Ezreal here. Um, me personally, I think if they pick something,
So
okay,
here's the
so
thing: do you think that they have the Shen pegged for the top lane, and that they see
well
the
they
Mordekaiser?
do they have it pegged top if you pick Mord here.
Mhm.
Mord, very good matchup into Shen. It diversifies your damage profile because you have Rek'Sai doing physical damage and true damage. Now you have Mordekaiser doing magic damage. Uh, just if the Shen does go top, I think Mordekaiser was a very effective pick. We're gonna have to find out after the second ban phase if that's what ends up happening. And I think with the Ashe lock-in, you might see BU end up banning 80 carries that they don't want to play against. I would be surprised. They might even ban Ezreal. I think it would be a mistake, but they might do it. Um, and I think Brandeis is going to potentially end up banning some safe supports.
Mhm. I'm curious.
So,
I'm very curious where
uh,
this Shen is going.
it is very scary, right? Because if Brandeis uses two bans on supports and they just flex the Shen bot and then pick a counter into Mordekaiser, that's going to be a very scary draft. So I think this might be a more safe option of banning the potential blind mid lane picks. Oh man, BU, their draft on point. I wanted to see the ban AD carries to take advantage of the Ashe, but I didn't want them to ban the Ezreal because I think he showed that it was kind of a not optimal performance and really ineffective. So I think by banning Jhin and Samira, the more aggressive lane picks that kind of enable your bot lane to make plays and have them be played around, I think it's a really effective draft options. And I think Brandeis acknowledging that the Shen could get flexed, doesn't want to overinvest into support bans, and ends up banning two very safe blind pick mid laners for True Lover. Both teams having quite reasonable drafts so far. I think this is going to be a competitive game.
A Vigar. That's probably for the mid lane. So we are still holding our breath here. Or is Vigar support? I don't think so. Not
So,
realistically. I know this mid laner
based,
is a Vigar player.
based on the champion pools of the mid lane of the support, I think it's basically always going to be a mid lane Vigar here. This is very crazy because it shows that BU is really valuing the flexibility of the Shen. I think there's basically no reason to, as the top lane Mordekaiser and the support Leona are locked in. So I think it made more sense to show your hand there and kind of lock in the either top or support and let your fifth pick counter pick mid. I think that would have been a better overall strategy. But this draft should be fine unless there's like a big counter pick to Vigar here that kind of ruins the draft. I would say, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I am a BU fan, of course. I go to BU. This is a BU stream. I think this was a slight draft mistake, but it shouldn't be anything too crazy. And here's the punish. Cassidon, notoriously able to rift walk through the cage, can really threaten Vigar by getting on top of him. There's not an incredible amount of point and click CC on BU, right? There's taunt flash, but basically nothing else. Cassidon, pretty big punish, I think.
Another thing though, we'll just wait to see this last pick. It is the Shen support.
Okay, and if the problem is that I don't get why you couldn't just pick Jax fourth. You know, like, is knowing that there's going to be a Cassidon mid really, like, does that matter in you picking Jax? Not really.
The thing I'm a little concerned about for the Cassidon, like you said, very good in theory into the Vigar. The thing I'm slightly worried about is last game we saw Brandeis sort of just slowly fall behind over the course of the game, and even though they have a late game powerhouse in the Vlad, they're never able to come online because once you're down 10,000 gold at 20 minutes, there is no late game like that you're striving for. So it will be interesting to see if they can reverse their sort of slow early game bleed out this game and get to a point where the Cassidon can really shine and really pop off and show his power against what BU has here.
I completely agree, and I think a lot of it is going to come down to, can the lanes that be more stable? And I think that this draft enables them to be more stable. Why do I think that? Well, it's because I think they drafted much more powerful matchups that cannot get abused as easily. Now, I think some of the play last game was based on matchups and being weaker early game and having that abuse, but I also think there was some mistakes in decision making, some mistakes in play, getting solo killed, not keeping track of the jungler, things like that, that even the stronger matchups that they drafted themselves might not help. So I think it'll be really important that I think the draft is good from Brandeis, and I think it has a clear win condition, and you should be able to identify how to play it. I think it's really important to not make mistakes and to not give away an early gold lead to enable your cast in the time he needs to scale and win you the game later.
It is.
I think your concerns are very valid, and if they do play in the same way that they played game one, they're gonna lose, and they're gonna lose very quickly because a Cassidon with no levels and no gold is a really bad champion.
Definitely. And maybe we want to, I guess, throw in what do you think about this Jax into the Mordekaiser? We saw the Jax come really late here, plus potentially catching Brandeis off guard.
Yeah, my personal opinion, Jack's really good here. My issue is I don't know why it couldn't have been picked fourth, right? I think what you enabled Brandeis to do by picking Vigar fourth and letting them pick this Cassidon relatively safely. I think that gave up more than showing your Shen flex earlier and having this Jax that because as I said before, the main reason behind that is because Mordekaiser was shown and Leona's was shown, so you knew both matchups already. So I really don't think there was a real need to hide the Jax for as long as they did, but it's certainly going to be effective. And you'd hope it's effective, right? Because the last pick, the entire draft, you see every single champion in the game. So in theory, what you pick last should never be ineffective, because if it is, I think that's a really huge mistake in your drafting process.
Definitely. We also do see the Shen coming in for the support, and I personally know that this support player likes to roam a lot, so he may be spending a lot of time in the river. So some river Shen vibes, but we unfortunately did not see him in his classic form.
Well, I think what I'd like to see is the Shen, I think, can make really good plays on the Misfortune early game. Is Misfortune not really one of the highest ranged characters in the game? So I'd really like to see the Graves kind of, at level 6, near level 6, kind of make a play and try and hard force onto this Misfortune. And then after, start playing around mid and top more and use the incredible power of a Shen ultimate, giving you a shield from anywhere on the map to get the Jax ahead and or to get the Vigar ahead and really shut down the entire map. It's kind of, I think with any global in the game, that's my go-to strategy of you support the global in the early game and then let the global support you in the later game.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of a famous saying of Mikhail Tal in chess. Chess is a great game for the ages. Help your
Solid
pieces
counter.
so they can help you.
Welcome to
Amen to
Summoner's
that, brother.
Rift.
As we get in here,
So BU looking for a level 1 as Shen with his taunt, very powerful early. Already said
30
last game,
seconds
Ashe,
until
very
minions
powerful
spawn.
early. Graves, very powerful early. Looks like they're not going to find someone in the bush, but they might find someone in Try. We're going to see how vigilant is this Leona. And the answer is not vigilant enough, I think. As she does get taunted, looks like they're going to leave it at the taunt. The ward is going to get killed, and so the scary part about this is Shen is very powerful as an initiator, and so with Leona flash down, not only is
Minions
Ashe
have
much more
spawned.
safe, but it does leave an opportunity for the Graves to maybe gank bot earlier than expected and really just try and kill the Leona. We're gonna have to see how much of an impact that has. I mean, the other on the flip side of the coin, right? Losing a flash isn't gold, right? So in theory, the game is still even, and if you can survive 5 minutes without dying, no harm, no foul. So we're gonna have to see how much it affects the matchup. The one big difference is that there is a ward for Brandeis at the Raptors and the ward at the buff for BU. So BU knows again exactly where Rek'Sai is starting, has perfect information, should not die to any ganks. Not that there's really ganks available early game, especially for a champ like a Cassidon. I think in theory I would have liked maybe Rek'Sai to actually start topside and path towards botside, maybe to support Leona with no flash. But it seems like they're going to kind of leave them on a 2v2 island and say good luck. We're going to see if that ends up being something they regret. But for now, the lane just trading and it's okay.
oh my god, that was very, very telling of the kind of mindset that, yes.
I completely agree. And I mean, the thing is, even if the taunt lands, what's going to happen? You take one Ashe auto, and then when the Shen walks away, you beat him up, right? But with flashing like that, I think that kind of shows that you're incredibly scared of getting outplayed in this 2v2. And I think that's really bad for things to come, because now, whenever the Shen wants, he can taunt flash. He has this incredible range advantage that you really don't have a good answer to. I would be very scared now. I mean, I think the draft that Brandeis said, as I'm going to reiterate again because it's very important. When you have a Cassidon, you have to not fall behind to enable your Cassidon to win you the game later. And I think if you're that scared, I think it's not a good sign for being able to play stable to enable this Cassidon. Again, no gold over yet, so it's okay for now. But if bot lane gets solo killed, or dies at all, it's going to be really bad. And you see again, because the bot lane's going so well in the 2v2, Graves is able to focus his entire attention topside and burns this Mordekaiser flash. And now Mordekaiser has to be scared of being the one to feed him to make the Kassadin not work. A lot of pressure advantage right now to VU, and I want to see them punish these flashes. You know, again, at the end of the day, flash is not a gold deficit, right? The scoreboard, if you look at the top, it's basically even, right? So even though you've burned all these cooldowns, it's nothing unless you can actually convert it into gold.
Definitely. So here we see all the teams just sort of establishing themselves. Rek'Sai potentially looking to secure that Gromp camp in Blue Team's jungle, and we see the bot lanes farming away. Some vertical jungling here, as we saw Graves and Rek'Sai trade sides of the map. But essentially,
This is really scary. The Jack's already up 15 CS. If they get this kill with the flashes, Mordekaiser under tower, it's going to be a doom game, I think. But the Rek'Sai making a really effective gank bot while actually getting first blood on the Ashe, getting completely surprised, had both songs up, uses them both, and still dies. The Kassadin has the TP top to support with the Mordekaiser because, as noted, the Graves was going to die, but the Mordekaiser lives, is able to soak up the XP, is able to soak up some of the gold. And honestly, a really important play. If Brandeis are going to win this game, not dying top and getting the kill bot, stabilizing bot and top at the same time is really key to their win condition and a really good start to the game for them. Unfortunately, the kill did go on Leona. First blood kill, so it's even more gold. 400 gold. Not exactly where you want it to go, but still better than nothing. Still helps stabilize. This Kassadin, he might get the time he needs. So after you see all these teleports, after you see these kills, you generally see players recall, spend the gold that they got, and then come back onto the map. So that's kind of what we see happening now, a stable state. Mordekaiser, oh man, I want Graves to path top right now. The Mordekaiser has a large wave, and in order to not get frozen on, he needs to crash into the tower. So if Graves paths top like I really want him to, he could probably kill the Mordekaiser trying to get a greedy push to crash the wave. Instead, he goes for his Krugs. That is reasonable, as well, as it seems like Mordekaiser is cheating towards the river to not get caught out by the Graves. The Kassadin getting good trades on the Veigar. This is why this matchup is really scary. The Kassadin basically under no threat of the Veigar. Has a mag damage. Wow, Shen with a
double his time. Coming in from the Shen, they're going to get a lot of damage down, and the Misfortune is very low now. She also doesn't have heal. She has the cleanse. Once again, very scared of the amount of CC coming in from the second taunt on Leona. She's gonna stun onto. Oh my gosh!
But there's no ignites. There's not actually threat.
Yeah, there's no flash. It's almost back up, but I don't think she's able to get there.
Oh, the Kassadin actually going over the wall, rift walking to find the kill. That's more gold onto the Kassadin, the person who really.
That is very good for Brandeis.
And are they going to go for the dragon as well? And I think this is possible because Misfortune was able to go and get the plant for the mana that she needs to use her spell, support this dragon take. And yeah, this is going to be an early Infernal for Brandeis. 2 kills, 500 gold lead, and I mean, let's do the interesting shit front. Brandeis' bot lane going great. You know, yes, they're getting engaged on, yes, they're going scared, but because of the support of the Rek'Sai first picked, having a really high influence going well. Mid lane, Kassadin, able to roam, pick up the kill, trading aggressively on Veigar, playing great. And then you look at topside.
Oh dear, oh my.
It is not going well for Brandeis, right? A 30 CS lead. And so, what does Jax enable you to do? Well, he is very notorious as a split pusher. So instead of grouping up and saying, oh, we have to group fight the Kassadin, oh, we have to group fight the Misfortune, the Leona, these champions who are notorious for being really effective in team fights, Jax can just say, no, I'm good, and just go top and push all the way to your base and not care, right?
That's
And so
a very big deal.
if this Jax gets fed enough or even just split push against everyone on Brandeis, that might be the win condition that they have to play around to win this game for BU. And I think it is a very effective condition considering you're already up 40 CS at 8.5 minutes. And for people who don't play that much League of Legends, that is not only abnormal, that is kind of incredible. If we press X to see the goal differential, wow, already up. I mean, there's no kills, but like already up like 600 gold. That is
That's 2 kills worth.
yeah, that is a really scary lead that can snowball, especially because there's been no real pressure top lane for either jungler. Like, yes, Graves went up and cleared a ward because he wanted to gank at the timing where I said it would have been a really effective gank. But basically, that's been a solo 1v1, and for the Jax to be this far ahead already, when I think it is, I think as the game goes longer, it's more and more favored for Jax. So in the worst part of the game for him to be this far ahead already is a really bad sign. Is it enough to overcome the Kassadin? I don't know. We'll have to see how things go.
Here we see the bot lane is Rek'Sai potentially looking for another play. Down here we see the Graves on the other side working on this Rift Herald uncontested. So it'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of eggs are in this bot lane play. Kassadin looking like he may be coming down as well.
And they do get the zone, they get the plates, but again, no kills, playing respectfully enough to not die, really important. But, as you noted, Rek'Sai bot side, Graves top side, what does that mean? This top lane matchup that's already really bad is even worse. And now, exhaust on the cast, can he get out? He has no flash, it is going to be death. Now you have, so I kind of hate that play. One, because you know that Fire has exhaust, so you're never going to be able to get the kill anyway. But I hate it even more because Castle doesn't have flash, so once you rip off Corey, he has no escape. But the Misfortune holds, going for this tower dive, they will get the Ashe, but they do not trade to aggro effectively enough and have the Leona die. The Rek'Sai will make it out, and the Shen should die here. But it ends up being a 2-for-1, not that clean. And what happens in exchange? The Graves with this Rift Herald goes mid, gets plates. He might even drop the Herald for the tower. Now this charge isn't going to kill it. It'll bring it down to about 3/4 up a plate. As you see, it does. But I mean, that's 4 plates of gold taken. That's 700 gold. And if you look at the gold lead, it's basically even when you're down 2 kills. That is really down to the farm and the plate advantage that I think BU is kind of using to climb back out of the hole of the really bad early game dive that happened bot.
Yeah, BU does, or not BU, Brandeis does claim the first turret of the game. That's going to be a nice little more gold going over to, I believe, the Misfortune got it, and potentially also the Rek'Sai.
Yep.
Leona, oh no.
So I agree, and I think getting that tower does bring you back to 1,000 gold is really pivotal. That you didn't just let BU make that 4-plate play mid for free. And so what was the punish? The punish was, hey, we zoned their bot lane, we killed them, let's take the tower, and they were able to do that successfully, and that is going to be very important. And so a very common play, that when your bot lane gets the bot lane tower, that they swap mid, have your mid lane, especially if they're mobile, swap bot, and that's what we're seeing now. And it looks like they're going to start setting up vision control in preparation for the second dragon that's spawning in less than 30 seconds. Now,
here we see Kassadin and Rek'Sai on opposite sides. Rek'Sai goes in, Kassadin as well. The Ashe is very low. Shem as well. Shem gets out before he gets killed by Rek'Sai. Kassadin is going to clean up the Ashe, and Graves also in trouble here.
I think so. If he doesn't do that,
I believe he is dead. He's not going to be able to kill the Rek'Sai or the Kassadin in return. And the dragon is once again going to go over to Brandeis.
And so we see, if you ignore top lane, like if League of Legends was a 2-lane game and top lane didn't exist, oh man, they'd be killing it, right? The scary part is, this Jax, it was a 40 CS lead before, now it's a 50 CS lead. It was a 600 gold lead before, hey, now it's like 900. Is it going to be enough to carry? Maybe. I mean, so here's the thing. split pushing used to be a very popular win con for teams. You know, in a meta where Fiora was good, Aurelia was good, whatever. And the reason it fell out of favor is because of the power of the elemental dragons. So the dragons that we've been seeing Brandeis take, when you get 4 of them, you get a dragon soul, which is an incredibly powerful team-wide permanent buff, right? And so this game, it's the power of Mountain Soul, which not only gives you elemental, it gives you resistance to damage, but a shield, which is very, very potent and effective. And I believe it has the 2nd highest win rate of any Dragon Soul. So I think this powerful soul is basically going to be the incentive to say, hey, Jax, we know you just want to split push, and that's fine, but if you ignore our team fighting and ignore us taking dragons, we're going to get this really powerful buff. And so I don't know if this Jax is going to have enough time split pushing to get the items he needs to actually carry the game for his team. Because honestly, as we said in game 1, where you had this one really powerful top lane pick. It was Vlad last game, and now it's Jax. You said, hey, we have a really powerful top lane pick. We just need the rest of the map to go stable so the top lane pick can carry. In game 1, Brandeis was playing very unstable. In game 2, it's BU, and you see it really hurting the win con of those teams.
Map is very quiet. Leona getting a little bit of damage. Rydar put onto her. The MF using an ulti. Clear the creep wave top lane, but there are no huge objectives out of the map, so...
The one objective is Brandeis feels pressured to make a play
Oh,
because
wow.
it's freezing bot lane, but how do you unfreeze? Well, if you just flash kill the Ashe, that's a really effective way. I think Jax is not strong enough to 1v2, so you might want to calm down a little bit. If we switch back to the items, though, we can kind of look at where everyone's at. So 1 core item for the 80 carries, 1 core item for the
Ashe
waves.
is still on this call, just trying very hard to complete that and get the money out of it.
It was much
that
worse
happens.
before, but Ashe had been freezing bot and was able to catch up. Both 80 carries about 15 away from the Cole proc.
Yes, the rep also has one. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I mean, if you look down the line, basically every player has one major item completed. The jungle item, the Seraph's Embrace, the Essence Reavers. The big difference is the Jax on his Blade of the Ruin King, very strong, allows him to duel, allows him to slow, with the Mordekaiser just on components for Zanya's. Zanya's a very uncommon item for Mordekaiser anyway, normally preferring the Leandry's Torment for the 10% extra damage for the burn, but instead being pressured into the Zanya's because of how far behind he is.
I'm very interested to see if the Kassadin converts one of these rings into a Soul Stealer.
I think in the current games that you really shouldn't. I think it is important to complete your normal core items, but there is potential if he gets strong enough. I think if he hits 10 stacks, he should consider it for sure. Brandeis has been much more popular in pro play as people realized, hey, the risk of this item isn't actually that bad, and it can be extremely powerful. Jax flash forward.
This is a big fight. Jax gets shredded. Oh my god.
So I think that play was really not necessary, because once Jax dies, that's a lot of their gold, and now they're just going to get run down. With this Herald, not only is it a bunch of kills, but they're going to lose a bunch of towers. I mean, Ashe's mid lane, they're going to lose top tier, they might lose inhibitor.
Yeah, I mean, this Rift Herald is just going to keep charging.
Yeah, I actually think they're going to lose inhibitor. Now, whether Brandeis decides to take the actual inhibitor is a very reasonable choice to not, but they're going to lose the tower. And losing this tower really early on is brutal. Because
this is a very valuable inhib, I think, because it is on the opposite side of the dragon, which is going to make contesting that even harder for Boston University.
So it's really important that Brandeis recalls right now and rushes dragon, because if you don't, you might give this dragon away for free and give 6 minutes of extra scaling to BU. Something you really do not want to do. The Cassin is there. I want him to... Oh, God, I do think...
I think BU is going to get this dragon, yeah.
Yeah, I think they might miss anything.
I believe... I mean, this is going back to what you said. I think potentially even taking the inhibitor was a mistake, and you want to get the reset to get to this dragon. but that's a very difficult call to make in the moment.
Yeah, and so there are two reasons why I thought that taking that inhibitor was going to be a mistake. The first one was as you properly acknowledged that it takes time to kill stuff, and so by taking the time to kill the inhibitor, it delayed your recall timings and allowing you to contest the dragon. The second reason I don't know if I like it is it's 18 minutes in, and so what killing an inhibitor does is it basically spawns super minions in that lane that are really powerful, and so when that happens, your wave always basically pushes to the enemy base. So what that does is it denies your team golden XP that you could spend killing the creeps in exchange for the pressure that you get by having the creeps push. And so the thing is, if you don't think that you're going to be able to make good use of that pressure, you're basically just giving bonus golden XP to the enemy team.
We do see though that still Brandeis is firmly in the lead, in control here. Caston bullying around the Vigar, they're continuing to plow through turrets in the mid lane. That's half health off the second tier. The first tower fell with basically no opposition. So I'm really curious to see what Boston University does to try to manage this, because the top inhib falling means the Jax is going to be pulled up there. He can't go bot lane and split push like he might want to, given with his Baron coming up.
Yep, that is absolutely true.
We're going to see another tower fall.
The pressure basically converts to, hey, Jax can't do anything with his team for 5 minutes because he's basically forced to catch the waves. They definitely do want Jax to catch the waves because, as I said, Jax is going to be the win condition, and so he wants all the gold and experience he can. So the thing is, as it stands, I agree. Brandeis is still in a very commanding lead, very far ahead, 6,000 gold, scale very well with the Cassin. They should not be worried yet. But another few plays go wrong. If you don't get the next dragon, it would be a worry. And Brandeis says, no, we want to just fight right now. We're going to start Baron. And if they get this, which it looks like at first they will, it does get scouted though. Jax with TP in bot lane. Is he going to cast it?
I think it's too fast. He's going to have to go for a steal here.
For a steal.
He steals it! Gets aware of it. They are going to get the Graves on the backside, but wow, what a big play. Casper coming in on the Rek'Sai.
This fight's really huge. If you can get away with one death for Baron, even two deaths. We noted, what was the gold lead before? 6,000 gold. What is it now? 5,000. But if you have enough people die and you lose the game for Baron is not worth it. But it seems like
that was a very big steal. Very big.
So instead of the gold lead going from 6k to like 8,000, it went from 6,000 to 5,000. That is bad. And I hate to say it, but this is what I'm saying. Like, yes, Brandeis taking the inhib top and giving away dragon doesn't lose you the game. But if you do enough slip-ups, you give an opening to your opponent, right? And if your League of Legends can be a very snowbally game, and so you really do not want to give the enemy team any momentum if possible. So I think, again, even with this mistake, with letting the enemy team get Baron, you're still in a fine spot if you're Brandeis. Yes, you messed up twice in a row, but it's still fine. But they really need to get this next dragon. I think if you lose this dragon, then the game can get really scary.
I agree. It's also a very big morale booster, and it's buying them a lot of time, because this is time where if Brandeis had gotten that Baron buff, that they would be continuing the pressure. The game would most likely just be totally over. But instead, this is more time that BU has to try to claw their way back into it and slowly farm up. We see the inhibitor has respawned on the top side. That's very good for this upcoming dragon fight. It's going to allow BU to potentially look for some kind of team fight. It's very hard for me, though, to imagine a team fight that BU is able to slam dunk. It's very hard.
I completely agree. But the one underrated point of Baron buff is it does give you temporary physical It gives you temporary AD and AP to make you slightly stronger for these fights. And while I agree it would be very hard for BU to win a fight, if you're ever going to win a fight, you know, you have potential now at least. Instead of a 0% chance, it might be like a 5% chance. So, will they be able to actually do anything? It seems like BU is forcing the issue by taking Dragon. If Brandeis is indecisive, they might not be able to get in time. Cassie with this flank, flying pressure gets Ash Arrow is
It's a huge MF ultimate.
but the Jax flank with the cage, MF is going to die, surely. Now, is there enough damage to deal with the Jax? It seems like everyone but the Gen has died. There is going to be Jax versus the world, but the world is too scary. They're going to take drag. They're going to push mid. And even with all the advantages given to BU, it was just not enough at the
Yeah,
ground.
that MF ulti instantly deleted 3 people on BU, and that was too much to handle. Unfortunately, Jax does not have a real weapon, and is not able to take that one.
And you know, we've been talking a lot about the Jax and how they have a good CS lead, but I want to bring attention to Brandeis' AD carry, the Misfortune, right? In game 1, they picked Ezreal. They had basically no impact. They got pressured. They died a lot. They lost a 3v2 when they were the 3. Like, it was bad play. This Misfortune, this game, he's had so much pressure. Got the first tower of 50 CS, up a full item on the Ashe. He's been popping off. That his ult in the last dragon fight was basically like game winning. This guy is having a really good game, and I'm really happy to see that they identified, hey, for how we want to play the game, the Ezreal was no good. Let's put you on something aggressive. Let's put you on the Misfortune. Let's get you the better support matchup by picking the Leona instead of the Nautilus. And guess what? It's showing in game. And that's I always enjoy seeing good drafts get rewarded. And I think I said before, Brandeis' draft, if they stabilized early, if they weren't giving advantages, was going to be really strong. And guess what? Not only did they not give advantages, they got advantages. They got the kills, they got the lead, and they, you know, even with the mistakes, they're playing good League of Legends. That's the truth.
Absolutely agree.
And you know, we kind of show like why the split pushing style of win conditions has been less and less effective in the current year where Dragon Soul is a thing. Because look, this Jax is trying to split push, but he has to fight against the inhibitor groups. He has to keep grouping up for these dragon fights because of how powerful his objective is. If this was a few years ago, Jax could just say, you know, goodbye team, I'll see you at the Nexus, right? And just push top without a care in the world. But you can't do that in the current year anymore. And I really think it goes to show that unless you're a really clean team, unless you can really execute this type of style without any mistakes, split pushing is really hard. It's really hard. Even the top pro level teams can't do it consistently. And the punish is being shown by Brandeis here.
We're gonna see the Baron spawn in some seconds here, about 20 seconds, and this will be a big moment. If Brandeis can secure this, I think the game is just over. But
and
if
I mean, we have a Medjez for Cassin too. Like
yes.
If you mess up and the Cassin gets like even more stacks than he already has, like it's a hard game. I honestly, I think Brandeis has a lot of ways to play that, but with the top inhib, I don't mind them just brute forcing the Baron. They might be shy to do it because, hey, last time they brute forced, they got stolen. But think about it, even though it got stolen, it was still a good result for you, right? And if somehow it gets stolen again, it would be very unlucky. I don't think that can scare you from doing it, and I'm glad that Brandeis has the courage to make this play. Ashel,
this is
ineffective.
a big fight.
Oh no, MF has just enough space to live. Okay, red team steals Baron again, Ash. So MF does die because of all the pressure Jax putting. Mordekaiser is 1v1 in the death realm. But I mean, it's just a Cassin gap, like let's be real, you know.
I think the game is just over.
Yeah, they're teleporting top, they're gonna cancel this recall. Yeah, the game looks just done. I mean, Cassin has Lichbane, he has Medjez, he takes this so fast. Yeah, the GG comes out, and I agree, the game's done. the game is done. And with this,
Wow, that was
1-1 and bring it.
that was such an explosive last fight. Oh my gosh, red team coming away with a Baron, but losing the Nexus. As you said the first time, that's a bad trade, and that's gonna be 1-1.
As you know, there's the three most important things on the map. You know, the third most important is Baron. That's pretty good. Second most important, Elder Dragon. But the first most important is, of course, your Nexus. And first most important for third most important, not something you like.
But it
So
was a very tense last few moments there, and I'm excited to see if BU can look at that. Where do you really? Because I feel like BU had a very similar start to the first game.
it'll be a great time. You know, and it's not the same as in person, but we're gonna enjoy
It's even
ourselves.
better than in person.
Come watch. Bring drinks, bring snacks, bring coffee because it's gonna be at 6 a.m. It'll be a good time. Been to picks and bans. Do you think BU's gonna go with the same 3 bands when they've lost, or do you think they're maybe gonna switch it up, ban the cast and ban something else?
I'd be surprised to see them go with the same 3
Well, the
bands.
Senna and the Kled are the same. The Lee Sin was what they did now. I think you do. Sorry, the Lee Sin was from Brandeis' side. The Darius was the same as before, and you know, I'll be honest, Cassin's kind of a scary champ. They might want to ban Cassin. The Graves ban, and I don't know if I like that because I feel like you're just you're saying, "BU, please first pick Leona." Leona's so good. I'm scared, Chris. Chris, I'm scared. I think Leona's really good, and I think
See,
it's
here's
one
the thing: do you
twice.
think they're gonna ban Leona?
Oh, Rek'Sai ban. That is an adaptation, right? And so I think I think Brandeis showed, hey, our jungler's most comfortable on Rek'Sai. We're happy to first pick it both games, right? Well, first rotation on red side, first pick blue side. Um,
I'm very curious to see if Leona
so
is not banned here. Will it be first pick? It was not banned.
Burn ban.
Will they first pick it?
I think you do, personally. They
They
go with the
disagree.
Hecarim instead. Hecarim, a very powerful champ. And so what was not banned instead of the Rek'Sai? It was the Thresh. And so they're going to answer with the Thresh. And you know, Thresh, so maybe that's part of your reason for not doing Leona, because notoriously Thresh is a good matchup into Leona. If Leona lands her Zenith Blade that lets her go in, Thresh can just nope her out of it, right? Flame away. And so maybe they're saying Thresh is good enough into Leona that we don't care about it, and we would just rather have Hecarim. So I don't think that game plan is terrible. I would, for a second pick here, it's kind of weird because the jungle pool got pinched a lot. There's no Graves, there's no Rek'Sai. I don't think there's a great pick into Hecarim left. I really am scared that they're going to pick a really low tempo jungler here. Ooh, and they go with the Kayn. Now, Kayn is a champion that if you deal damage, you can get a form either Rost by hitting melee champions or Shadow Assassin by hitting ranged champions, or default Kayn if you're Spica in pro play and hit no champions.
Oh no!
So
TSM, no!
no matter which of the 3 forms you pick, okay, this game is going to be hype.
Trill is done with.
He's done with the games. So we spoke
done.
about after game 1 that Samira, new champ, very powerful, very aggressive. You can go in, you can ult everyone, you have massive AoE, you have massive mobility. It's really strong. And Samira synergizes really well with crowd control champions. And so what do you have? You have a Hecarim, massive AoE crowd control. Nautilus, really good crowd control. And while I said that I think Leona is an objectively better champion than Nautilus, Nautilus is specifically better into Thresh because your ultimate cannot be flayed away, right? And so I think that is a really powerful matchup, the Samira and Nautilus. And I think the Xayah is okay.
So I'm gonna be entirely honest. This might just be me, but when I look at Samira, I say, "Oh my god, I don't know what she's doing, but she just killed me, and I couldn't do anything." So maybe you could walk us through how Samira works.
Yeah. So Samira is a champion that's really relying around her passive. And so when she does damage with an auto attack or with a spell, she gets a style rank that goes from D tier to S tier. Um, and so there's a little bit of more nuance to that where like you can't use the same damage type twice. So like if you auto twice in a row, it only builds up once, or if you use a spell twice in a row, it only builds up once. But like basically every time you hit them, you build this rank, and your ultimate can only be activated if you have the max rank. But when it is, you do a lot of damage, and I mean like you do a lot of damage, and it's damage to everyone around you in a big AOE. Um, so I think Samir is just a really powerful champion right now. In contrast, I think Xayah is a really weak champion. But you can already see that the pressure that Brandeis is under in champs, like because they're like, oh god, they have Hecarim, they have Nautilus, they have Samira. Like our AD carry is going to be under a lot of threat. So we basically have to go Xayah just to make sure that they can play the game. And I think acknowledging that already is a really bad sign because you're saying, hey, our damage dealers are not going to have a good time doing damage. And and having to admit that already 3 picks in, I think is a really bad sign.
Yeah, and as we mentioned before, we see the Lux come out. That's a very, very comfort pick, I feel, for the Bosnian
It is.
versus
It was
mid
banned
laner.
last game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a fine
Um,
matchup into Ari. I mean, I will say it is Ari favored in my opinion, but Lux can just play very safe and just say like, I don't care about you. I'm just gonna wave clear. I'm gonna sit under my tower like, and once this Hecarim and this Nautilus get fed, Lux is really, really good follow up because at Nautilus and Hecarim can both dive really far, right? Hecarim just charges with his ultimate, like super deep into the backline, and mostly your team cannot help you follow up on your engage because it's so far. But Lux is one of the few champions that can, just because her ultimate range is basically as far as a Hecarim charges. So I think that's a really good combo here. The Gnar had to be blind pick, and it got answered with the Malphite, who I think is going to be a really powerful champion in this game. Gnar does physical damage, Hecarim does physical damage, Malphite really good versus physical damage, and you're against a Lux who is very immobile and is going to basically have to flash Malphite ult or get one shot. But
it'll be
I will
interesting to
say,
see.
so the Kayn is a very low early pressure champion. And I think he doesn't have very good lanes to gank except bot. Um, and so it's going to be really important from my perspective to see how Kane can build his form effectively. Because as I kind of mentioned, he needs his red form or his blue form to really become a full champion. When he's not upgraded, he is very weak, right? And so if you have really difficult lanes to gank and you just sit unupgraded for a long period of time, that is like a disaster situation, like game losing disaster situation. So we're gonna have to see if he can navigate this difficult game state effectively to not be useless.
Yeah, and so most of the time, at least that I've seen Kane be played in a sort of um, like a more serious competitive setting, blue form is not as viable often at times as red form.
That is
Do you,
correct usually.
so with that in mind, if he's really trying to prioritize red form, do we expect to see him trying to? I'm trying to think here. I mean, all these lanes are ranged lanes, so I mean, there is a potential that he could just see a delayed upgrade where he has to ignore the blue one for a while.
Yeah, so for people who are less nuanced with Kane, so if you hit range champions, you build up blue form. If you hit melee champions, you build up red form. But once you have a form unlocked, if you don't like that form, you can wait an additional few minutes to get the other version. Um, that's kind of what Chris is talking about. And in general, I agree. You basically have to go red form Kane in any real serious setting because blue form Kane is completely reliant on snowball and is generally not a consistent enough strategy to execute at a high level. unless you are very, very, very experienced on exactly your champion's limits and can only be picked into low crowd control team comps where you have the opportunity to outplay. But I don't expect them to go for that style. I agree with Chris that it will be very likely Red Kane, who is more focused on crowd control, self sustain, being a bruiser, who basically deals damage while healing, to be a real nuisance. Um, and I agree with everything you said. It's going to be really difficult for him to get to his red form in a timely manner, and I think his ability to is really going to show if Brandeis are going to be competitive in this game or not.
Mm-hmm.
So as we
Definitely.
load up in the last moments of this game, I think that is really the most important champion to look at is the Kane from Brandeis' side, how he's going to get his form, specifically his red form, and if he's going to be able to be effective. And while blue side, I think they have a even though Malphite was fifth picked, Gnar into Malphite is a abusable matchup for Gnar, right? He has good early pressure. I think um, Hecarim is a really powerful early jungler, though he doesn't really have great lanes to gank. So I think the more I think about it, I think Boston University on blue side are actually going to have a really tame early game, probably not that much kill pressure, and it's mostly just going to be centered around this Kane. Like I think this is going to really just make or break the game,
I do
honestly.
feel like as we see the pings going down, the red team is very excited to go bot lane here. I do feel like the one thing we need to keep in mind is we saw a lot of success from the early ganks from the Rek'Sai last game. An early
Welcome
Kane
to
gank
Summoner's
is not
Rift.
It's
nearly as explosive as an early Rek'Sai gank. We're
I
gonna
completely
see.
agree. The only other thing I forgot to mention is I think
30 seconds
blue team
until ring.
massively outscales. So
Oh,
if blue team just survives early on, I think they will win the game. So you see a level one here. There are a few nuances to this level one. So Thresh, seeing the Samira and Nautilus, decides to go for a flash hook to try and secure a kill. Samira, seeing that the Thresh flashed, leveled up her wind wall, which basically completely blocked out the hook, which means her level one is going to be quite weak. But even with
Minions have
that happening,
spawned.
Ari leveled up her charm, which is her CC ability, and threw it at Nautilus, basically burning his flash. So the nuances of this is that Thresh and Nautilus both don't have flash, and the Ari on red side and the Samira on blue side both have a very poor ability level one. Um, in general, because both supports are the ones without flashes, I think this might mean that you see if a CC lands bot lane, there could be more kill threat than you would expect, especially because Samira and Zaya both have quite reasonable follow-up to CC. Other than that, I mean, I think the poor skills level one don't really matter. I think Ari can just hit two, fine. I don't think Lux has that big of a punish. And in the same way, I think Samira will be able to hit two just fine without really worrying about it. This so there are two like styles of Malphite. You can either go Comet for the lane, or you can do like a more team fight oriented route in the resolve tree. And he decides to go Comet because he knows that even though he did pick into Gnar, it is more for the team comp and not really for lane. So making sure he can hold his own in the 1v1 with Comet, and as you see with his shards proccing Comet, he's able to trade much more effectively than if he had a different keystone. Other than that, not really too much nuance. The Kane farming normally, the Hecarim farming normally, both ending on the bot side of the map, so you might see a lot of pressure and ganks here, especially because both supports do not have flash. Um, Malphite getting pushed in as you would expect because he's been spending a lot of his mana and damage on harassing the Gnar, while the Gnar has been spending a lot of his boomerangs and pushing away. So it would make sense that this kind of crashes, Malphite doing his best to farm under tower, but understanding that, hey, if I lose a few CS, it doesn't really matter. The much more important thing is staying healthy so that he doesn't get bullied out by the Gnar, and I think it's a good choice to say I would rather be down 5 CS than basically lose my entire health bar. The Akram is going for the gank here, while the Kayn is on Scuttle. We'll see if the Kayn finishes the Scuttle or goes for the gank. The Kayn kind of... so when I said the Kayn is going to see if he wants to finish the Scuttle or not, that was kind of sarcastic. I meant he's probably going to get off the Scuttle and help his team, but he said, I don't give a fuck. Now if the Xayah dies, I would rate that probably bad out of 10.
I believe she's going to get out, unless the Samira chooses to chase with her own flash, which she does not, and that is going to be 1 kill going over to Boston University.
Yeah, so you kind of hate to see it if you're Brandeis. Both supports not having flash as acknowledged, so the Hecarim says, hey, let's punish that. Let's gank the lane. They do it, they kill the Thresh. The Kayn says, I'm just going to get the Scuttle, and then just does that. And it kind of ends up in a really big reward for BU, where not only do they get the kill, but they burn both summoners from the Xayah. And now the Xayah's under her own threat. If she ever gets hit by a hook from Nautilus, she'll basically get 100 to 0. So I think the game state from BU is really good. And we also mentioned one more thing.
Oh my gosh. That is a big solo kill. Very spicy.
Not only burning cleanse, but getting the kill anyway. That is very brutal. Very, very brutal.
Absolutely.
As I was mentioning earlier, the Kayn has not hit any champion yet, so very far from his form. Not a good sign.
The thing is, about that solo kill in the mid lane, is it was at the worst possible time for Lux, because her wave was just about to crash. She lost the entire thing to the tower, as you can see. She's now down more than a full wave.
Yep. So Chris is kind of iterating the point of, in League of Legends, there's like good deaths and bad deaths. Because a death by itself, you give XP and you give 300 gold, right? But the context that Chris is talking about is what happens while you're dead that you could have done if you were alive, right? So if you had just pushed your wave to the enemy tower and you die, you don't actually lose any creeps that are worth their own gold and XP. So you lose 300 gold, but that's basically it. But what happened here, where you lose a wave under tower, not only do you lose the initial 300 gold, but you basically lose an extra 200 gold in creeps and about half a level in XP, which is really bad. So Xayah gets caught out by the Hecarim, but there is a teleport. If Malphite dies here, it's going to be completely dead, so there is no lantern. He walks away, he has flash, but he dies anyway. Kayn is here, but he's certainly going to die as well. Wait, but the Ahri ends up having a really good roam here first before Lux getting the kill. The Lux is here, but will they be able to kill Nautilus? I don't think so. The Ahri has to flash the Lux bind. Wow. I thought that was going to be a disaster fight, because after the teleport gets called, Xayah was already dead, so I thought they were just going to turn on Malphite, and they do. And they get Malphite even through his flash, but the Ahri moving about 10 seconds faster than the Lux gave them the people they needed to actually kind of come back in that fight. I
believe it was a 3 for 3, right?
I do believe so. And so there's the main beneficiaries of that fight are Ahri for Brandeis' side, as she was able to pick up the few kills at the end there, but Gnar for Buu's side didn't actually teleport, and was able to pick up a large amount of CS and I believe a plate as well topside.
We see junglers farming up. Dragon has spawned in. It's an Mountain Drake.
Yeah, let's just hold them for wave clear there.
Teams will start to posture around it. Lux using her ultimate to clear the creep wave mid lane, preempting a recall. Very standard play.
This Merc Treads by from Thresh feels really bad because you get CC'd so much by Samir and Nautilus and Hecarim, but you're against an 80 carry and an attack damage jungler. Building magic resist feels really bad. The other thing that I want to note is that the recall timing of the 80 carries, Xayah stuck a double longsword plus boots, while Samir has BF sword and Vamp Scepter. So the Samira obviously has a lot more gold with 2 extra kills, but she's also much stronger at this current point. Samira going and she has her ult, he's gonna use it. It's that giant circle. Guess what? That you hit S rank, basically win the fight. That's what happens. Malphite ulting on the Gnar, it's gonna be a kill. That is very good for the Malphite stabilizing top lane, and it would be really important if bot lane didn't just actually explode. I think that solo kill would have really had a high influence on this game if bot lane didn't just die there, because basically that was by far, I think, your weakest point. And I think by stabilizing top, you would have this really kind of big armor threat that would be really annoying for Gnar, Hecarim, and Mira. But I think with that triple kill bot, the Samira is going to end up being really too far ahead for the Xayah and Thresh to deal with, and now I'm really worried that the Xayah and Thresh are just going to basically die on repeat. And this has kind of been a game, as we said, what did we say before in Champs, like Chris? The strong bot lane has...
So that Ari? Oh, she barely survives. Oh my gosh.
That is true, and that's really good for Ari. But back to the point, right? Like, sure, Gnar's strong top, and sure, like, Ari's like slightly ahead mid, but the solo lanes haven't mattered. The stronger bot lane has won consistently.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And I'm really worried that I think the Samira is not against enough CC where she's basically just going to be able to take over the game by herself. You can see already there the Brandeis bottom lane getting zoned very far back. The Bloodthirster from Samira, I mean, even if she takes a bit of damage, just so oppressive to actually get enough damage to kill her. Really difficult. Good trade from the Lux there. Probably not going to see a kill. And, you know, another thing to point out, right? We're 11 minutes in. Kayn has no form. I don't even think he's close to his form. So really kind of struggling to find use from this pick, and I think it was kind of apparent from Champ Select that this is it was going to be a hard angle, and we said if Brandeis is going to win, they're going to have to find whatever angle it is, and I don't think this is it, Chief.
Yeah,
I mean, Malphite ult is up. Malphite ult is up. They might just, you know, go boom, just force stop. But I mean, with the Nautilus roam top, I mean, it basically counters that entire play. The Samir is strong enough to just destroy Xayah by herself. Oh man, this is... I mean, I don't want to call it too early, but like, barring a pretty big mistake, this has already looked like a BU victory. The Malphite ult, but he only hits Gnar, not really powerful enough. The Thresh goes in, he doesn't find any effectiveness. The Ahri goes in, does not find any effectiveness. This Nautilus might die, but even if he does, the Malphite's certainly going to die for it. He doesn't even, thanks to a good stopwatch. The Samira might even still kill the Xayah. She does. Pan back to the fight. Kaden doing his best. Dies. Not a useful champion. Chris, the game is over.
That's a 1 for 4 coming out for Boston University, and this is going to be a very big lead that they start to grow here.
I mean,
Samira is absolutely taking over the bottom lane. The jungle is being dominated mostly by this Hecarim, as you said. Kayn not really finding his footing here, and it's very, as you said, it's very, very difficult to see Brandeis finding any success in the near future in any plays.
I mean, you just think about the draft. First pick Hecarim, super strong. He's been taking over the game. finding a bunch of plays across the map. What was answer? It was Kayn and it was Thresh. Thresh 0-3, not really doing that hot. His lanterns have not been effective. Kayn not even transformed at 13 minutes, not really finding any plays around the map. Has hard to gank lanes, done nothing. Then you go back. What was second rotation for you? Samira Nautilus. Wow, this bot lane has been having so much influence, so many plays, so many solo plays. They look really clean, really good on the picks, right? Like, you just think about the draft and the picks that EU picked early, that they identified, hey, these are going to be the important champions to winning us the game. They're popping off. And the same can't be said for Brandeis, and I think it's really showing in this, like, really, really dominating game so far. Well, I mean, almost a 3,000 gold lead for the AD carry at 14 minutes. That is just
Wow.
absolutely disgusting. Especially the AD carry, which is, so AD carry is a role in general known for scaling, and the reason why they're known for scaling is that their items are very multiplicative with each other. That the more items you get exponentially strong. And so having a 3,000 gold lead already means that you're going to hit this, like, critical threshold of doing way too much damage for the enemy team to handle much sooner than they would normally expect. And I think it's really going to just be almost impossible to deal with, especially because Samira. So normally Samira doesn't rush Bloodthirster, they rush something like Infinity Edge or Essence Reaver, but you're so far ahead that you could itemize defensively, get rid of any possible counterplay that the enemy team might have, and still be farther ahead than your opponent. It's a really nice luxury, and I think it's a good choice in really making sure you can't lose this game.
This looks like a Draven build.
Yeah, and it is. You know, the reason why Draven does this build, he does it for two reasons. One, because he scales really well with flat AD, thanks to his Q, but also because, hey, Draven knows he's short range and has to get really involved in the fight, so lifesteal is really efficient. And Samira has some of those same qualities that make the build make sense. Gnar is getting ganked, but good counter by Hecker. Hecker completely misses, but
Oh my gosh, I don't even think that the Malphite's gonna be able to get anything here.
He doesn't. And it's a 2-for-0, an absolute disaster. The counter gank by a Hecker, and even when missing the ult, like, this is what I'm saying. Kayn, without his form, just is not a full champion. He's so weak. And the problem is he knows he has to force plays because they're far behind, and if they don't force anything, they're gonna lose. But if you do force something, you also lose because you're so weak. It's a really an impossible situation for me here, and that's why, you know, I don't want to say the game's over at like 10 minutes or 15 minutes because, right, the game ends when the Nexus is over, right, and people throw and people make mistakes, but the mistakes that would need to happen are just so large that it is really tough even coming up with a mentality or a game plan or a strategy that Brandeis would have to execute to win here. Kayn is transformed now, but I mean, look what happens when he transforms. He dies to the super fed Samira. She's gonna ult. She has the S ring.
Samira ults, and that's gonna burn down the Thresh.
Now they teleport here. The reason is why there is no dragon. The Xayah should know there's a teleport since they saw it. She has ult and flash. Oh my god, this is a fantastic hook from Nautilus. Killing the Xayah, and the Kayn does not have ult, so he dies too, so his dash is out. I mean, Chris, Brandeis isn't even playing bad at this point, but they're just so far behind that, you know, there's no opportunity.
Absolutely.
Oh. I'll be honest, I really like that play from Ari. Seeing the Samira
They do secure the kill on the Samira, but at what cost?
So
At what cost, Ouroboros?
I think that was a really cool play. So the Ari knew that the wind wall was gone and that Samira was tanking tower shots. So by going for a flash Q, if you get that kill, you secure 1,000 gold. And 1,000 gold is a ton. So I think going for that play is really smart. Unfortunately, the Samira lives by the slimmest of margins thanks to the defensive build I was talking about earlier, right? If that was an Infinity Edge instead of a Bloodthirster, the Samira dies, right? So the defensive build's really paying off, but the Samira ends up living, and the 1,000 gold shutdown, it does get over, but it goes over to the Malphite, the tank Malphite, who's, I don't to be honest, the damage dealers on BU are so fed that giving 1,000 gold to your tank isn't actually that effective. It would have been much more important to give that gold to your carries so that maybe if BU miss positions, you can punish. So I think it's really unfortunate that the 1,000 gold shutdown went over where it did, but that was a really, really smart play by Ari, identifying an incredibly small window to potentially get some sort of advantage back and trying to execute on it. So BU, they're so far ahead. They want to secure every objective since Dragon isn't up. They are going to get this next Herald. Herald is normally not super effective in a close game state, because if in a close game state, the enemy, if you use Herald, the enemy team can kind of group up and say, hey, back off, and you're like, oh, I guess I have to back off. But when you're this far ahead, Herald can be a very brutal tool to end the game. Samira going in, ulting, killed the Xayah basically instantly, and now trying to fight her way out of between the towers, ends up getting herself and the Nautilus killed, giving another 800 gold shutdown away, but this time, it goes to the Ari. And I mean, I don't want to say it, but I think it's too little too late. BU is playing sloppy. That was a really bad play, and I think Brandeis capitalized very well on it. But you're so far behind at this point. I don't know if these types of mistakes are actually going to give you the window. Like, it helps, but the thing is, I think it opened the window like 1 millimeter, right? It's going to take a lot of those types of plays to even come close to coming back in this game, I think. Getting this dragon would help though, but even with the kill they got on Smirnoff's,
wow.
The Kayn ult, he kills Nan, but unfortunately the dragon is stolen, and no, the Nautilus and Samira are back. Their flashes, Nautilus hooked, but he didn't flash, so it didn't connect. I really think the Nautilus should have flashed there, because it's really important for Samira to have that first piece of CC land so you can start building your style. But because it missed, now Samira basically isn't able to actually chain through the fight. And so that ends up, it's so heartbreaking. It really is, because I think Brandeis played the fight well, and if they had gotten the dragon, it would have been a good play for them. But because the dragon got stolen by the Lux, it ends up being bad anyway. So, you know, again, it's the same thing as I said with the 2 kills mid, right? Brandeis is now, the last 5 minutes, they are playing well. But the problem is they played the first 15 minutes so bad that it's hard to say that it matters really. And BU doing an incredibly early Baron in 21 minutes. They have the pink one, so they know that there's no vision. They have a life stealing.
The Malphite does have teleport here. He could look to potentially teleport there, and I would definitely assume it's going to happen if they know this is happening.
They don't know. The Kayn is just doing grubs. The Ari's going to farm on top.
Oh my god.
They're not even going to check it. They think it's 20 minutes, so there's no threat, but there is a threat. I hate to say it, and I mean, so the gold goes from 5,000 gold to 7,000 gold, and with the power of Baron, I think it's going to be really hard to stabilize this game, even harder than it was. I mean, I think it's important as a third party, like someone spectating. It's really important to try and analyze how the losing team can come back, because from their perspective, right, they really want to win this game. Like, this is the pivotal game 3, and if it's gonna happen, I think it's going to be Samira diving in with to try and get a bunch of kills, and then not quite being able to chain her mobility and getting caught and dying. But besides something like that,
oh my gosh. Goodbye, King.
without something like that, it's gonna be really
See
hard.
you in the fountain. And joining you will be Xayah and Thresh.
It's just, I mean, you can tell they're confident. Lux bought Medjai's already. Samira is almost 3 items. It's just painful. It really, like, every League of Legends player knows this type of game where, like, if it was just like a solo queue game, like, you would just FF it because you're like, it's the lots, guys. But you know, it's CSL. People are gonna play it out, but it is hard to watch. It's a 10,000 gold lead at 24 minutes. I would say blue team scales better. I think they have an easier to execute comp. It is.
That's an Ari that is also now going to be in the fountain
Samira
in
did miss
40
Red Bull.
seconds.
There is potential for Samira messed up pretty badly.
And while the red team does manage to bring down Samira at last, they're going to lose.
The Lux dies too, they're going to lose Medjai.
Yeah, the Lux is going to die, and that's actually 4 kills picked up for the red team here. We'll see if they can get the Quadra. It's going to be difficult for this guy to get away.
He might die, he might not. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So I think there's kind of there's 3 important points. Well, maybe. Yeah. So 1, they couldn't actually push with the Baron, right? So because they died there, they don't get the in-hit, which is really good for Brandeis. 2, they shut down the Medjai's that was on Lux. We'd spoken about, she invested in this item that basically says, hey, if I don't die, you lose. And she dies, which is pretty bad. And the third thing is it gives, you know, much needed gold to red team to hopefully let them recover a little bit. I mean, even after getting such a clean fight, they're still down 8,000.
Yeah, she's still down a monstrous amount of gold. Zaya compared to Samira.
Yeah, it is really hard, and it was. I just noted the Samira messed up. She got caught, and she used her ult in the worst way possible. It got instantly canceled, so it gave Brandeis an opening that they capitalized on. Unfortunately, it didn't even result in a neutral objective fight because they're still giving the third dragon too far from the rest. And you know, I really wish this game was close earlier, because with the amount of mistakes BU is making, I think in a more even game state, these mistakes could have been really influential. But I don't lie to myself or lie to the audience. In reality, because of the game state we're in, it's probably not going to matter that they're making these mistakes because they're just so absurdly far ahead that even doing this, you know, might increase Brandeis' chance of winning from like 2% to like 4%. But like in the grand scheme of things, that's not really a lot. So we'll have to see if maybe Brandeis can find another opening and like increase the win rate even further. But it's still really rough. It's still really rough.
Trouble. He's able to flash out though, and the Gnar is potentially going to fall here. He gets away though. Thresh is finally going to fall. Oh my god. You're absolutely right. But damage is happening all around. Samira though, still standing, and suddenly, in the blink of an eye, the entire side of Brandeis has fallen, and 4 of the Boston University players, or no, 3.
Yeah, the game is over. The way it was in the day.
4 of them remain. Yeah, the game has ended. That's going to be Boston University taking the series 2-1.
Over Brandeis, and I mean,
What a performance.
I'll reiterate it. Brandeis, the last 15 minutes of that game, played really reasonably. They played well. They found openings. They got picks. And honestly, it was a good showing